Welcome to the second part of Act 1, Scene 3 with Macbeth. And this is where the noblesmen's Ross and Angus arrive. They're both thanes. And again, to kind of back up what's happened is that Macbeth and Banquo have, returning from war, from battle, from defeating the Norwegians, have come across three witches on the heath. Now, we already know through dramatic irony that they had planned to meet him. So in a sense, he's kind of taken by surprise. And what they tell him is quite wonderful, that he will be king and that he'll be the Thane of Cawdor, and that, he gets these prophecies. And Banquo, who takes it with a pinch of salt, sort of hears that his son will be, though he'll be no king, his sons will be kings. And so he sort of doesn't really think anything of it. And this, in a sense, plays into what happens in this part of the scene. So Ross begins. The king hath happily received, Macbeth, the news of thy success, and when he reads thy personal venture in the rebels' fight, his wonders and his praises do contend. Which would they thine his silence that, in viewing whereas the self-same day, he finds thee in stout Norwegian ranks. Nothing afeard of thyself didst make, strange images of death, as thick as tale, came post with post, and every one did bear the praises in his kingdom's great defence, and poured them down before him. And here Ross is is almost like quite a jubilant tone here, almost a little bit sarcastic. He finds thee in the stout Norwegian ranks, which sort of gives the sense that Macbeth is quite happy to take the fight to the Norwegians and run straight into them, into the kind of the soldiers themselves, and get stuck in. And nothing afeard of that didst thou make. Strange images of death, as thick as tale, came post with post. And so we get this idea that kind of Ross is recounting what the king has heard, that he's heard really good things. And Angus says to him, we are sent to give thee from our royal master thanks, only to herald thee into his sight, not pay thee. Now, it's interesting to say not pay thee, because usually what you do, if you kind of want to battle, you can get some money. I mean, because that's really what it's about. At the end of the day, is economics. And so we get this idea that they're inviting him to meet the king. Okay. And Ross says, and for an earnest of a great honour, he bade me from him call thee Thane of Cawdor, in which edition hail, most worthy Thane, for it is thine. Now this is like, in a sense, the Queen giving, Prince William another title, or more lands, like the Duke of Cumberland, or the kind of, the Earl of Wessex, or something like that. This is quite major. This is a major thing. But look what Banquo says, and it's that, what? Can the devil speak true? And in a way, Banquo's quite taken aback. He's the one in shock now. He's the one who's absolutely kind of on the back foot. Whoa, hold on a second, can the devil speak true? Because in a sense, although he's rational, he knows that these people are kind of, they represent evil, but also to prophesy the future is not a good thing. Biblically, it's not good. And that goes back to, the Bible and necromancy and things like that, communicating with dead spirits. So then Macbeth says, the Thane of Cawdor lives. Why do you dress me in borrowed robes? And I love this kind of euphemism, borrowed robes. And in a sense, he's unaware what the Thane of Cawdor has done, that the Thane of Cawdor sided with the Norwegians. He's not aware of that. And that, in a way, he's saying, well, hold on a second, why are you giving me this honour when this guy lives a prosperous gentleman? I mean, we know that already from what the witches said. And then Angus clarifies the situation here. Who was the Thane lives yet, but under heavy judgment bears that life. And heavy judgment means it's an execution. It's a capital crime, which he deserves to lose. whether he was combined with those of Norway, or did line the rebel with hidden help and vantage, or that with both he laboured in his country's wrack, I know not. But treason's capital confessed and proved have overthrown him. So in a sense, we kind of understand that the Thane of Cawdor has admitted to what he's done. He hasn't denied it. All right. Now, this is kind of important here because this is Macbeth. All right. And I want you to notice this where it says, here, where have we gone? Here we are. An aside. Now, an aside is what a character does when they're in communication with other characters on the stage, but they don't want that person to hear them. In a way, it's kind of like their inner thoughts are coming out. Think about it that way clearly. Their inner thoughts. All right. Now, he can't voice them, obviously, but he says this. Glams and Thane of Cawdor, the greatest is behind. So what's happening is he's got Glams. Now he's got Thane of Cawdor. The greatest is behind. The kingship comes after the Thane of Cawdor. He's behind Cawdor in a sense. And what I want you to notice there, he doesn't question it. He just assumes that that's what's going to be. It's a statement. The greatest is behind. So I'm waiting. I'm waiting for this kingship. Great. And then to Ross and Angus, he says, thanks for your pains. And then to Banquo, okay. Do you not hope your children shall be kings, when those that gave the Thane of Cawdor to me promised no less to them? And Banquo here, he says, that trusted home might be enkindled unto the crown. Besides, the Thane of Cawdor, but it's strange and often times to win us to our harm. The instruments of darkness tell us truths, win us with honest trifles, to betray us in deepest consequence, cousins, I pray you. Now, this is very, very important because Banquo, in a sense, he nails it. He understands, in a sense, the nature of what's just happened. That basically, does he answer? Does he really answer Macbeth? He doesn't. He doesn't say he hopes my children shall be kings. He talks about something much different. He talks about believing things that really, you got to be careful here, might enkindle unto the crown, the Thane of Cawdor. But 'tis strange, and oftentimes to win us to our harm, the instruments of darkness tell us truths. So yeah, it could be truth. What the witches have saying, it could be true. Okay, well, it is true, obviously, because it just told me it's the Thane of Cawdor. But beware, there's something dark and evil about this, and it will harm you. This is harmful. This is not good. Okay. To betray us in deepest consequence, cousins, a word I pray. And here, in a way, Banquo seems to understand in deepest consequence that what happens is when we take this in consideration, this has a very, in a sense, there's a big knock-on effect here. All right. And here we have Macbeth. Remember, he's still with his with the Thanes, so he's kind of in among them in the scene. And remember, I want you to visualize this. And Macbeth says, two truths are told as happy prologues to the swelling act of the imperial theme. I thank you, gentlemen. And there's something almost sneaky about here. He says, happy prologues to the swelling act of the imperial theme. The imperial theme, obviously, is being the kingship, but also kind of how things are growing. They're swelling. They're kind of, ready to break out. And then he has a little bit of a think about that. Because again, in his aside, he says, this supernatural soliciting cannot be ill. Cannot be good. If ill, why hath it given me earnest of success, commencing in the truth? I am the Thane of Cawdor. If good, why do I yield to that suggestion whose horrid image doth unfix my hair and make my unseated heart knock at my ribs against the use of nature? Present fears are less than horrible imaginings. My thought, whose murder yet is but fantastical, shakes it so my single state of man that function is smothered in surmise, and nothing is but what is not. And we kind of get these really interesting things. This kind of, can it be ill, can it be good? Remember the equivocation, the ambiguity. It's ambiguous, okay? He can't quite decide. But what he does understand is he's done nothing wrong in order to become the Thane of Cawdor. In fact, he's done everything right. He's been honest, he's been noble, he's been brave, he's, done the right thing, and he's been awarded with the title, the Thane of Cawdor. But I want you to pay attention here where it says, why do I yield to that suggestion whose horrid image does unfix my hair and make my seated heart knock at my ribs against the use of nature? And against that use of nature, he's referring to murder. Now here is our first hint, in a sense, in this aside, that Macbeth has already considered murdering the king. Now, it's a daydream, obviously. It's something that probably everyone has thought about. If I were to be king, how would I be king? Oh, that's right, I'd have to get rid of the old man. Oh. So in a sense, what we've got here is this idea that kind of he can't figure out why he's done nothing wrong, yet to be king, he'll have to murder the king. Because remember, kings are not elected. You don't apply for a kingship. Kingship is through blood. It's through lineage. It's through the descendants. So obviously, if Duncan has two sons, Malcolm and Donalbain, Malcolm being the oldest, who would the new kingship be befall? Malcolm. So in a way, Macbeth can't work this out. If I really are to be king, I would have to do that. He says, my thought, whose murder is yet but fantastical. It's a fantasy to believe you could kill the king. Shakes to my single state of man, that function is smothered in surmise, and nothing is but what is not. And nothing is but what is not. Consider what that means. In some ways, it means that what we see is not what is real. The map is not the territory. Okay, and that's interesting. And then Banquo says, look how our partner's wrapped. Now, wrapped in the sense of rapture. He's kind of caught up. So I want you to imagine Macbeth standing there and he's just staring into the distance. And he's got all these things going on. And his face, in a sense, is just filled with awe. And he's just going through all this stuff in his head. And then again he says, when he's thought about it, if chance will have me king, why chance may crown me without my stir. And what he means is just pretty straightforward. That if it's just good old luck, okay? If it's just lucky that I become king, then that's brilliant. Chance may crown me without my stir. I won't have to do anything. So I can become a king and I don't need to do anything. I won't need to kill anybody. I will just need to basically just get on with it. They'll come to me and say, King Macbeth, something's happened, and you'll be king. And then Banquo comes to him again. New honours upon him, like our strange garments, cleave not to their mould, but with the aid of use. Well, he's basically saying he's not quite used to this. He's taken this very important role on, the Thane of Cawdor. And he's just in shock. He's in shock over the fact that he's got this, and he's thinking about how he'll be a good Thane of Cawdor and how he'll be a good land, he'll be a good subject of the king. But he's not. He's actually thinking about murdering the king. And it's kind of interesting that Banquo doesn't quite say this. And later on, in Act 1, King Duncan says of the original Thane of Cawdor, when he's being executed, there's no art to find the mind's construction in the face. What that means is you can never tell what people are thinking just by looking at them. And in a sense, Banquo's unable to do that either. All right. And then Macbeth, in a final aside, says, Come what, come may, time and the hour runs through the roughest day. And what that means, in a way, is that what will be will be. That nothing can change, in a sense, the kind of the forwardness of time that can't be changed. And so we just see. I'm just going to leave it alone and just see where it goes. I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to leave it. Okay. And then, worthy Macbeth, we stay upon your leisure. And here we kind of get this sort of sense of Macbeth almost becoming, in a way, quite disingenuous. He's almost taking on his role. Give me your favour, my dull brain was wrought with things forgotten. Kind gentlemen, your pains are registered, where every day I turn the leaf to read them. Let us toward the king think upon what hath chanced, and at more time the interim, having weighed, let us speak our free hearts to each other. Very gladly. Till then, enough. Come, friends. And here Shakespeare has Macbeth in a sense. He's lying because he's not. How could you tell? Because to think about killing the king, in a sense, would be to kill him. Because in the Bible, in a sense, if you thought about the sin, you've committed the sin in a way. And so here we've got this really interesting kind of situation where he understands the gravity of his own thoughts and the fact that things are going to change quite radically if he's going to be king. All right. Act 1, Scene 4 progresses that further on and, in a sense, pushes Macbeth into a corner where the only way that he can achieve his dreams is to act upon them in the most violent fashion. Though Act 1, Scene 3 is incredibly important. It's the catalyst for what happens in the play. We've got the supernatural ideas of the witches coming together. We've got the introduction of Banquo and Macbeth, and they're quite different characters. Although they're like brothers in arms, they are very, very different. And so we see the two of them as they are, as Shakespeare intends them to be. One quite rational and reasoned, and the other quite, in a sense, almost at the realm of his emotions and feelings.